Hafa Day and welcome everyone. The Committee on Health, Land, Justice and Culture is hereby calling to order a oversight hearing. Today is Thursday, January 21, 2021. The time is 9:10 a.m. Notices for this oversight hearing were disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets on Tuesday, January 12, and again on Tuesday, January 19, 2021. The notice was also published in the Guam Daily Post on Tuesday, January 19, 2021. This Zoom meeting is hosted by the Guam Legislature's MIS staff and my committee staff, and I thank them for their assistance. The host will mute all Zoom participants until called upon by the chair. Individuals testifying shall first be recognized by the chair before speaking and begin by stating your name for the record. This will help us in transcribing the proceedings today. The order questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda, and we ask that answers be kept brief and to the point in order to allow all senators to ask questions. I'd like to thank my colleagues who are present this morning with us. Beginning with the Vice Speaker, Senator Tina Munoz-Barnes, the Legislative Secretary, Senator Shelton, Senator Chris Duenas, Senator Joanne Brown, Senator Tony Ada, Senator Talina, Senator James Moylan, and Senator Talina Nelson. Thank you, colleagues, for being present this morning. I'd also like to thank the members of the Guam Land Use Commission, the Department of Land Management, members of the Application Review Committee, who are also here, and personnel from the Department of Public Health and Social Services Division of Environmental Health for attending this morning. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of the Vice Chair of my committee, Senator Sabina Flores-Perez. All right, so today's oversight hearing will be on to receive information on the Guam Land Use Commission's review of land use applications, issues causing delays or impediments to the review of these applications. We will briefly describe the same process for workforce housing application review, monitoring of workforce housing regulations. And I will guide this hearing by posing questions to the Guam Land Use Commission first, then to the Department of Land Management, then to members of the ARC, Administrative Review Committee, and then we will discuss the workforce housing in particular with questions at that point to the Division of Environmental Health and Department of Public Health, Social Services. That will be followed by questions from senators to any member of the panel. Beginning with the Guam Land Use Commission. The Guam Land Use Commission is the board of the Department of Land Management. It oversees land issues that pertain to zone changes, zoning law, conditional use and variance applications. And I want to note that the Guam Land Use Commission members are not GovGuam employees. They are private citizens who volunteer and have been appointed by the governor with consent of the legislature. And administrative support for the commission is provided by the Department of Land Management Planning Division. We've called this oversight hearing because of reports and complaints about delays in processing of land use applications. We know that there have been similar complaints throughout the years, and that the legislatures in the past have tried to tweak these laws to ensure community input and also to ensure timely review. But we are still hearing these types of complaints, so we've called this oversight hearing to hopefully get to the real issues of what might be slowing down the process or impeding the process. We're hoping to receive recommendations from the parties involved and from the public as well. Pursuant to Section 60401 of Title 21, Guam Code Annotated, the Guam Land Use Commission is composed of 5 members appointed by the governor with the consent of the legislature for a period of 5 years. Quorum consists of 3 members. There are currently 4 members of the GLUC and 1 vacancy. Just for the record, the legislature received on January 8, 2021, an appointment packet for Nonito Blas to fill the seat of Conchita Bethan, whose term has expired, and that appointment is waiting referral. So the current members of the board are Dr. Anita Enriquez, who is the chairperson, and she's present with us today. Arthur Chan, who's a member of the commission, and he's also present with us today. And Leilani Flores, who's a member and is also present with us today. And Mr. Brian Artero, who is a member. So we will begin with the Guam Land Use Commission. And I've asked the chairperson, Dr. Enriquez, if they could just very briefly, so we're all on the same page here, explain the land use application process. In other words, GLUC's process for reviewing these applications. Dr. Enriquez, you're recognized.
Madam Speaker and Chairperson, members of your committee, honorable senators of the 36th Guam Legislature. My name is Anita Borja Enriquez. I am the chair of the Guam Land Use Commission. Thank you for this opportunity to be able to provide a briefing on the process of the application review committee. The commission had met for the first time since its last meeting of March 2020, prior to the pandemic emergency on November 12th of 2020. We have had 3 meetings thus far. Our next meeting is scheduled next week, January 28th. By public law, our regular meetings are every second and fourth Thursday of the month, and by mandate, the application review committee meets every first and third Thursday as needed. So I do have 2 representatives of Department of Land Management who are very much informed and familiar with the application review committee process and the application process itself. I will turn it over to Chief Planner Celine Cruz to elaborate on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson Enriquez, and good morning, everyone. I am Celine Cruz. I'm the Chief Planner at the Department of Land Management, and I'm going to explain the application process for the Guam Land Use Commission, the Hybrid Guam Land Use Commission, and the Guam Seashore Protection Commission, as they all go through the same steps in their processing to get to each of those designated commissions. There are 5 steps, and the first step is the preliminary application interview process, or the PAI. During the PAI, there's a review of the submission as to form and context, a PAI response letter noting acceptance with corrections or additional information if necessary. And then once accepted, the first public notice requirement falls into play, and that's the appropriate sign at the project location. The second step is the meeting with the application review committee. This meeting is a technical review with the applicant of the application, and this begins the timeline for the submission of official position statements from each of our application review committee members. The third step is the municipal public hearing. In this step, there is a public notice requirement again that includes advertisement in the newspaper of general circulation, certified mail sent to property owners within 500-foot radius of the project site, and an update to the project location site with the municipal public hearing date, time, location, and meeting. And proof is provided by the applicant and verified by the case planner. The fourth step is the Guam Land Use Commission, the Hybrid Guam Land Use Commission, or the Guam Seashore Protection Commission meeting. And in that meeting, again, there's some public notice requirements that must be met. It has to be advertised in a newspaper of general circulation. And the meeting has to be the meeting notice must be updated on the project sign with the GLUC meeting date, time, and location, and again, proof provided by the applicant and verified by the case planner. And after that meeting, the administrative staff put together a notice of action for signature by the chief planner and the chairperson of the Guam Land Use Commission.
Thank you, Ms. Cruz. So the question we have in general is whether any steps have been taken by the Guam Land Use Commission to improve or find ways to expedite any of these steps.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I know that there was an amendment to the law that streamlined the review under the Application Review Committee to 30 days. And if there was a need to extend that timeline, then that notification had to be provided at least 45 days prior to then. There are some suggestions that were identified by Director Mr. Joseph Borja of the Land Management Division, and along with members of the his case planners and chief planner. And so that was presented at the November 12th meeting, but we are certainly very receptive to whatever recommendations are presented in order to streamline this. We understand that there are to wait 30 days for meetings to take place. That has been streamlined, so the committees can meet twice a month instead of once a month. So that was progress. We are certainly very mindful of the lag in terms of parts of the process. We understand that there were 40 applications pending in various stages of this process. And we also have 8 applications that have already received all position statements before the Application Review Committee and are now just pending the Municipal Planning Council public hearings. Any delay within that process is contingent upon when the position statements have been completed by each of the members of the Application Review Committee. If there are missing documents, missing position statements, they are not entertained by the ARC and therefore do not move forward through that 5-step process that Chief Planner Cruz had just explained to us. We certainly are very receptive to looking for ways to streamline and be more efficient. Thank you.
How many applications are in front of the board that you were not able to act on at your last meeting, or in front of the commission?
All right. Our meeting is scheduled next week. I am going to turn it over to our chief planner. The ARC drives the agenda of the GLUC, and depending on what has already been completed within the process, that is when we see it on our agenda and with the corresponding documents for our review. So Chief Planner Cruz, could you please elaborate on that? Thank you.
Madam Chair, we have two applications for review at our meeting on January 28th. And again, we do have 8 applications that once the public hearing has been conducted and public hearing minutes are compiled by the case planner, it would be ready for GLUC review. We have not been able to have any of those municipal public hearings due to the pandemic. And we've just been on hold, but we actually are in the process of coordinating our first public hearing. We have a tentative date with the Dededo Mayor's Office for February 25th, and I just got that information confirmed to me this morning. But we are ready to go. We've been ready. We have also an additional 10 applications that the research has been completed for the 500-foot radius notification, but we're waiting for those final position statements from our application review committee.
All right. And so are there any applications pending that were in front of the board in the last couple of months that had already completed the rest of the process that the board was not able to act on?
We have brought all applications that have been ready for the Guam Land Use Commission to them as soon as we were able to. We did have, in one of our meetings, it was brought to our attention that there was a continuance of a previous application with our last sitting Guam Land Use Commission. And there was one member, it was Vice Chairman Art Chan, that brought it to our attention. And so at the following meeting, we were able to continue the discussion on that application, and an action was taken by the Guam Land Use Commission.
All right, so it's my understanding, and just if we could confirm, that all applications that have actually got to the Guam Land Use Commission agenda have been acted on. And then you've got a couple that will be acted on in your next meeting because they are ready. And all other pending applications have simply not been put on the Guam Land Use Commission agenda.
That is correct.
Because they're waiting for other steps in the process. Okay, I just want to clarify that. And for the benefit of the new commission members, I know that they have been trying to clear these applications. All right. So the commission stopped processing, well, we heard about the commission meetings, all right, and then you were telling us that the public hearings were put on hold since March. But are you able, is it your understanding that under the current PCOR 2, the public hearings will proceed?
So it's my understanding that the number of individuals able to attend a public gathering has been lifted up to 50. And even with that lifting, there aren't too many applications that we see that many attendees. However, we have put into place some guidelines for how we are going to be conducting public hearings under the PCOR 2, and it includes sanitizing the areas, having some ushers so that we meet all the COVID protocols, and we're just preparing the best that we can to have our first public hearing hopefully next month.
All right, and these are the municipal public hearings that you coordinate with the mayors to hold in their municipalities, correct?
Correct.
All right, Mr. Borja, the Director of Land Management, just wanted to ask if you wanted to add anything to that discussion, or if you could explain any reasons for application delays at the Department of Land Management phase of the review process.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. This is Joseph Borja, Director of Land Management, who also serves as the Executive Secretary of the Guam Land Use Commission. I'd like to give a brief background of actions of the Land Use Commission since January 2019 to September 2019, which is the end of the fiscal year. We process applications numbering them in the fiscal year that they were submitted. Since January 2019 to September 2019, and again, this overlaps in the two boards, the previous board whose terms expired and the new board, the GLUC has had 6 meetings approving 7 applications. 13 meetings were canceled due to no quorum. 1 was canceled due to technical difficulties. 1 was a special meeting. Of the 6 meetings held, all of them started 30 minutes or later. I came into the Department of Land Management February 8, 2019. The next week, the chief planner retired. The chief planner plays an important part because the chief planner is basically the administrative officer of the application review committee. Just to correct an earlier statement, it's not the administrative review committee, it's the application review committee. Yeah. So the chief planner retired about a week after I came in. We recruited for a chief planner, and after 2 recruitment processes, a chief planner was hired in February of 2020. That would be Ms. Celine Cruz. On March 20 was the last meeting of the GLUC before the COVID declaration. From October 2019 to September 20, there have been 5 meetings held, 2 hybrid meetings, 1 canceled meeting due to no quorum. The last meeting before the COVID declaration was March 12, 2020, and the declaration was March 14. There were no meetings since then. After much justified delay, the Guam Land Use Commission is now at quorum level since October 2020. And a few weeks after the members were confirmed, the first meeting of this new commissioners was held on November 12. Of a possible 6 meetings since October 2020 to today, 3 were held. Of the 3 not held, 1 was on Thanksgiving, which was rescheduled to the following Tuesday. 1 was on Christmas Eve, and there were 2 that had no agenda items ready. So your question, Madam Speaker, as to how many applications before the commission did the commission not act on? Every application put on the agenda of this new commission has been addressed by the new commission. So there's no pending. And I just want to clarify a little situation here. When you hear the term, the commission is delaying in approving my application, it's really not the commission. There are several players in this process. One of them, of course, is the application review committee. Every application that has gone before the board takes immediate action, except the one that Chief Planner said was a holdover from the previous commission, which this commission has already taken care of. The delay is usually at the point where you are ready to have a municipal public hearing, but not all of the position statements are in. The planning division will not hold a municipal public hearing until all the position statements in. Now, I believe the sequential process observed in put in Public Law 23209, there is wording in there that a hearing can be held when any and all application position statements are in. The Application Review Committee has interpreted that to say that you don't have the municipal hearing until you get all the position statements in. That public law was driven actually by a concern from the mayors and to the general public that municipal public hearings were being held on applications without the benefit of the position statement or the presence of one of the of any of the ARC members, the Application Review Committee members, so that when an application comes before the municipal public hearing, some of the questions are, will this project affect my water pressure? Will this project affect the power supply coming to my home? If the position statement is not in, that question wouldn't be able to be answered at the municipal public hearing. So that's why it's very important to have that. Now, you could interpret Public Law 33-209 to say that when any position statement comes in, you could take a look at that and say, okay, we'll have the public hearing then, because we already have a position statement, and get the process going. We have decided to err on the side of caution and wait for all the position statements to be in. Now, once you accept the application under the PAI and it goes to the Application Review Committee, it triggers that 60-day time period where they come in. Previously, there have been requests for public hearings, but if you don't have the position statement in, we won't be able to answer the questions from the general public at that particular municipal public hearing. The public hearing notice, so we're talking about two things here. We have the public hearing, but we also have the notice factor. The notice factor for these meetings are actually tighter than the requirements for public hearings at the legislature, in the sense that in statute, the process for public notice is in there, and it requires personal notice in the form of a certified letter out to the surrounding owners within a 500-foot radius of the hearing coming up. The delay, like I said, it's really not with the commission. The delay is with the Application Review Committee to hold that municipal public hearing with the benefit of the position statements that are in there. If you look at the flow chart, and I'm sorry we don't have that on the screen, but in the flow chart, you see the flow chart of the track that the application takes. And the first stop for that application is in the Application Review Committee.
Director Borja, if you could just hold on a minute, we'll put that up on the screen.
Okay.
But yeah, I'd like you've talked about several different items, and if we could just distinguish them, because as you described, there are different parts of the process. So for now, can we concentrate on the Department of Land Management's initial part, and that would be the preliminary application interview, or when they receive these applications. This is the Department of Land Management's work, and if you could describe if there are any impediments to this phase of processing land applications.
No, I don't see, up to the point where that yellow box on the screen, Madam Speaker, I don't see any in there. The Application Review Committee is held actually to make sure that the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed on the application, because once land management accepts that application, it triggers that 60-day period under Public Law 33-209. So when we accept the application, we would have already gone through the preliminary application interview to make sure that all the documents, all the information is in that application, so that when it gets referred to the Application Review Committee, it doesn't get delayed because that 60 days is running already. So in that particular part before the yellow, I don't see any part there where we can speed up the process, other than trying to convert to a online submission of the application. As you can see in that big yellow big circle, one of the items there is that you have to make 32 sets for conditional use, zone change, and zone variance. 32 sets of application is quite a lot. If we could convert to online submission, the applicant won't have to make those 32 sets 32 sets of documents.
Director, if I can go back to the preliminary application interview. Are there any pending applications in that? How long does this phase take before formally accept these applications?
About 10 days. There are about 3 applications that I know that are pending a preliminary application interview, and I think the chief planner has already scheduled some of those. So I believe there's 3.
Do you believe that 10 days is reasonable, or could it be shortened, or should it be shortened?
It's 10 working days. I think that's reasonable, Madam Chair. Some of these applications are quite complex. They're not, they're not cut and dry. Some of them are pretty complex, and that is usually made by the case planner. I think 10 days is an adequate time.
All right, and so 10 days until an application is accepted and then sent, according to the big circle on the left, to the application review committee. And you're saying 10 days till it gets to the application review committee and dispersed to the individual members of that committee. Now, when you say position statements earlier, can you just clarify? You're talking about individual position statements from the individual members of the application review committee, not from the committee itself.
That's correct, from the application review committee members, the various agencies.
All right, if all agencies submit their responses to the application review committee, how long does it take the committee to act?
At their next meeting.
Okay,
at their next meeting. And one of the items that the legislators would should review is that the agenda of the GLUC is actually driven by the ARC. So in a way, the GLUC doesn't really have any control of their agenda or what agenda items are placed on there.
All right, so the staffing at the Department of Land Management to review these applications in this initial step, you feel is adequate, and that's not the cause of any delay here. And the during COVID, when the public hearings, well, sorry, let me go back. So after the application review committee, after the big square, we go down to this, big circle, we go down to the square application review committee meeting. After that's completed, and then your agency, Department of Land Management, helps to set these municipal public hearings. And so we've heard that the public hearings were put on hold since March. And is it your understanding that these public hearings are going to proceed safely as the chief planner described now, and that there's no impediment to holding public hearings beginning today?
That is correct. We of course check with the host community to see whether they can hold the hearing safely. There are 2 of the 8 pending applications, pending public hearing. 5 are in Derido, 1 Tamuning, 1 Barrigada, and 1 Talafofo. The one in Talafofo, the facility we use for municipal public hearings, is not adequate to meet COVID protocols. It's a too small a building. It's the Jeremy Newby Center in Talafofo. It's too small. Of course, we don't know how many people would come to a public hearing. It varies, for a simple application, sometimes you can get 20. And for the more controversial ones, you could get up to 50.
Are you able to work out these facilities issues with the mayors at this point? Or are you saying you need assistance with that?
Dedido, Tamuning, and Barrigada have adjusted. The one that kind of hard to adjust because there's not too many public facilities down in Talafofo. That one we might have to hold outside. But Barrigada has adapted. They used to have their meetings, municipal hearing in a small room that could only hold probably about 12 people and maybe 4 safely under the protocol. But the other two, Tamuning and Dedido, yes, we can hold them safely from now on.
All right. So for those that you are feeling there's some type of impediment, it's my understanding that sometimes the developers have offered to assist with finding venues or making those available in the municipalities to facilitate prompt hearings. Are you able to work with them in that regard?
These municipal public hearings actually should be held in a public facility. The developers, the consultants have offered during the times when the congregation levels were really low, they offered to provide security to make sure that people were following the COVID protocols. And they were also providing that if there was anything else needed, like to rent a facility, that they would go ahead and do that. We have not taken them up on those two offers. The other issue in holding a public hearing, Madam Chair, is that if you were to have a hearings, and we gave thought to having a video conferencing at these public hearings, but we had a problem with ensuring that everybody who wanted to attend these video meetings had access to video programs and computers to be able to attend these hearings online, and that was taken off the table.
All right. Well, it's unfortunate we can't to go back and make up, for that time that we've lost not having hearings. But yeah, I hope that you can double your efforts to make these hearings possible regardless. And can you tell me, is it a legal impediment to allowing the developers to provide a venue in the municipality, or you just feel it's just a matter of proper procedures?
I don't think it's a legal impediment. I mean, they pay for the mailing, as it is now. You could make them pay for the venue. It's actually the making sure that adequate unfettered access is available to the public at any particular site.
All right. And is there any delay by the Department of Land Management in being able to research and do the mailing for the adjacent landowners that you're required to give notice to for these public hearings?
On the pending applications and within the protocol, the process for that mailing is the looper section of the planning division does the research on the landowners within that 500-foot radius. We get the owner's name of the lots around that, and then we find their address, usually through the tax roll. We find their address, and then we, if there's 50 landowners in that 500 square foot radius, we develop 50 letters, and we mail these letters out, certified mail. Now that part may be a delay because a land management staffer actually has to make those 50 certified mailing forms and then take all of that up to the post office physically, stand in line, and then get to the counter and process those 50 certified mailing forms out. That can be tedious. That usually takes staff member about 2 hours, 2.5 hours sometimes. And then with this COVID protocol, it might take longer and be opening up that employee for possible, contamination on that. Now, there is an offer by the consultants to be able to do that themselves, engage a title company, get all that information, and then mail it out. Notice factor in these processing of this application and in the public hearing are very important. There was a real serious notice problem with those 4 condo units up there by Guam Memorial Hospital. And that project actually crashed in the beginning because of that notice factor, which was subsequently reversed, but it delayed that project long enough to be able to, to crash. So that is one thing that maybe the legislature can look at, because that thing is set in statute. It's not an administrative rule and regulation, on those mailing things. And at least one consultant, one developer is willing to undertake that. That there could be a delay in that if there's if a project, for example, is near a condo unit or next to a large apartment complex. You could have literally up to 100 certified letters to prepare and mail out.
All right, but you're saying, Director, that there's no delay in the research part of it, that your agency's been able to accommodate those, and that the developers are the one who are paying for the mailing. And are you able to take them up on their offers to do the mailing?
I believe the mailing is set in statute by land management.
All right, so you think that the mailing by DLM versus the developers requires legislative action?
That I believe, yes, it does, Madam Chair.
All right, and what about the research part of it? Do you charge a fee for that type of research?
The fee is actually comes when the letters are being prepared. That's where the employee cost factor comes in there. But they're not charged for that specific research. They are charged for the mailing. Okay. And that check is made payable directly actually to the post office, not to land management.
All right, so you don't think it would be faster to have the developers hire a title company to do the research or take that upon themselves? That would not.
I think, yes, I think it would be faster because, each developer, each consultant, they would be just working on that one list. Whereas here at land management, we do have a senior employee, senior level employee, but he's only one person. So he's working, I believe we have about 30 applications that are land use research, landowner research. I believe 10 of them are done, so that when we go back to
okay, so you believe you can't do this on your own at this point with the current law, that you need a change in statute in order to authorize that?
That could be a point, Madam Chair, of delay. I agree with you that yes, that could be late. We only have one person doing that at land management.
But are you able to authorize that without a change in law? Like right now, can you just authorize that on your own, that the title research will be done and the adjacent landowners list will be compiled by the developers, presented to the Department of Land Management for approval, and then used for the mailing?
I don't think so. I think you do need a statute change, Chief Planner.
Yes, I agree. It requires the law to be changed in order for us to have now the applicants do the research.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the next step is that the ARC positions, so it's your position, Director, that the municipal public hearing cannot be held until every agency in the application review committee has submitted its individual statements and the committee has taken action. And so if you could tell me, are these position statements from the application review committee members delayed? They're supposed to be done in 30 days. Could you give us an analysis of what you've seen? Are there delays in that process?
I believe it's 60 days. But Madam Chair, in all fairness to the other agencies, and I was previously also a land use consultant applying, to the Land Use Commission several years ago. In my experience there and with my conversation with the developers and the consultants, there are three agencies that I wouldn't say are habitually delayed, but submit position statements late, tardy, and some of them are too comprehensive, at least in the eyes of the consultant. There is one agency, I think, where the quote-unquote delay is justified, and that would be Guam EPA. Review by Guam EPA is not only one review. There are three different programs, three different divisions of EPA that need to review that application, at least three: soil, water, and air quality. Other agencies like the Department of Agriculture, their basic review involves making sure, or at least identifying agricultural lands being taken out of agricultural use, for example, to build something else other than agriculture. That would be one of their concerns. And then the other concern they usually have, which is a template, is just plant indigenous trees.
Okay, Director, we're going to hear from each of these individual
Okay.
ARC members, but in general, so you think most of the members submit within the 60 days, and there are only about three agencies that you think take longer than 60 days. Is this almost always, or how often?
The three agencies are pretty frequent, but like I said, depending on their mandate, that's how complicated their response would be.
Okay, what are the three agencies besides Guam EPA?
Guam EPA, Agriculture, and the Bureau of Statistics and Plans. Bureau of Statistics and Plans has a overall comprehensive mandate, to respond to these requests for position statements.
Right.
Department of Agriculture is almost always basically a template response, and the Guam EPA, their response, they have such a technical review of these applications because of their discipline there, being the environment.
Individually from each of those, I'm very grateful that they are all present. So the 60 days in general, do you find that in your position there as director, and do you find that to be a reasonable time frame, or that can it be shortened?
60 days is reasonable, and I would think it can be shortened.
To 30 days? What is your recommendation?
I would say 45.
All right.
45 working days.
And is there any legal, have you received advice from the Attorney General, or is there any legal opinion out there interpreting whether the law that says any and all available reports and position statements have been received from the Department of Land Management, that those words, any and all available reports and position statements, prevents you from holding a public hearing if one of the members of the ARC has not submitted its report?
No, I have not received anything from the Attorney General's office. However, I did review the committee report for the bill that became Public Law 33-209. And in that, there were several instances, and that bill was, or public law, actually was the result of 5 public hearings around the island where we took input from the public concerned that, and that was one of the biggest concerns and most frequent concerns, is that the Land Use Commission, Land Management, is having these public hearings out there, previous, and Waterworks is not there. There's no position statement from DPW concerning access and like that.
Sure. Okay. And do you believe that all agencies then should be able to comply with the 45 days if it was changed to 45 days?
I believe with the exception of EPA, because they have such a detailed review of the 3 different programs, at least those 3 different programs, I think EPA should be allowed to, go up to 45 days or even 60, depending on the complexity of that project application.
All right. Thank you, Director, and thank you, Chief Planner Cruz. And of course, thank you to the Government Commission Chair and members who, again, are here and have answered these questions. I'm going to now, we're going to have to shift the screens just a little bit so that we can show the ARC members who are here and for this portion of the hearing. So the ARC, the Application Review Committee members who are here today are Mr. Edwin Regis from Bureau of Statistics and Plans, Antonio Gumatauta from the Guam Power Authority, Jeffrey Kidigwa from the Department of Agriculture, Administrator Walter Leon Guerrero from the Guam Environmental Protection Agency, Administrator Roki Alcantara from the Department of Parks and Recreation. We've got 4 representatives from the Guam Waterworks Authority, including the General Manager, Miguel Berdalio, the Chief Engineer, Brett Rayleigh, Senior Engineer Supervisor, Maureen McDonald, and the Grants Administrator, Planning and Permit, Prudential Uggan. So we could start with Bureau of Statistics and Plans, and they have provided information that has been provided to the senators as well. They have summaries of their process in-house and what they do. But so my questions for you, Mr. Regis, are what do you believe is a reasonable time frame for your agency to review these applications?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to testify in this hearing. I also want to acknowledge also my thanks to the honorable members of the 36th Guam Legislature and members of the Guam Land Use Commission, as well as directors and fellow members of the ARC. So to answer your question, very simply, I think up to 45 days would be reasonable. And I can certainly go in depth in terms of justifying that number if you would like me to.
Well, currently, is the time frame that you follow 60 days?
I believe it's we follow the 30 days, or we try to follow the 30 days, given all the different constraints and challenges.
True, but the Director of Land Management has said that you are actually allowed 60 days. If you, can you tell us what your interpretation is of your submissions? Have they been on time, pretty generally, or have they been delayed as indicated?
So depending on the complexities of the position statements, I think some of them making it in on time. So some of the easier ones, some of the minor setback variances. Some of the larger ones require a much more in-depth analysis, and they have to kind of meet certain standards within our SOP. So those sometimes slip in terms of meeting the schedule, but we ensure that before we issue a position statement that it does represent the comprehensive planning elements and the various regulations and policies and manuals that speak to good coastal resource use.
Well, when you say slip in meeting the schedule, can you tell me how often that happens?
To give you a percentage, I'd say it's maybe in the low 10 to 15% of applications that would be delayed.
All right, and is there an impediment to the review, or is there any way that your agency could ensure that they are all done within 45 days, that there are no delays?
I think some of the improvements that can be made is the ability to access GIS data. And so if we were able to go to this, maybe an online system or some kind of digital system that gives us geospatial data in ArcGIS format, we'll be able to map those areas. And so it'll save certainly an amount of time to recreate the different polygons and shapefiles that we used to overlay other land use constraints such as FEMA firm maps, topography, land cover change, and those types.
And who would be able to produce that? Is that the developer, or are you saying that's something land management needs?
So from what I can tell from the actual hard copy documents, these images and these maps were likely produced in ArcGIS Pro. And so at some point they did exist in an electronic form. And so we can have that data and then migrate it to our system. It'll save us the time from having to recreate the maps. So as you can imagine, they come in as a print form. We would have to geo-rectify the maps, try to make sure that they're projecting correctly, redo the polygons, and then we start our modeling. So if we can bypass that by having data that's already produced by the developer, then that would improve the process. It helps speed up the process.
All right. Has the COVID affected your ability to review these applications?
They have, in that we don't have the ability to retrieve the documents. We don't have the ability to scan these really large documents that some of them are awkward in size. So you have, the basic text in the applications, which is 8.5 by 11, but then there's some maps that kind of extend into, the 14 and 17-inch range. And so when you're trying to take this unbound document and have a staff rescan everything and then try to send it virtually, it makes it very difficult for those early times that we were locked down. But since the lockdown, we haven't put anything in place systematically within the Bureau to work towards scanning those documents, whether they be standard size or those awkward size.
Do you see any impediments going forward to review of the documents and then your agency meeting with the entire review committee to complete these applications?
So it looks like there's enough energy being created through the leadership of Director Borja to convene these meetings. And certainly we look forward to that, and I don't anticipate any problems with getting back into the swing of things in terms of churning out our reviews on these projects.
All right, so when you said that about 10 to 15% of applications that you review at Bureau of Statistics and Plans may require more than, was that 60 days or 30 days that you were referring to?
I was referring to that 45-day mark. So I'm confident that we can get it done within 60 days, regardless of the complexity of the project asterisk. I mean, you never know what could come our way.
All right, if we, and what about 30 days? If, how often do you exceed 30 days?
So I would say that the applications, they're probably churned out around that. More than half of them are produced within that time frame, 30 to 45 days. I like to get it out well within the due date. And so it just all depends on kind of like the work schedule that we have to, that's in front of us, our day-to-day duties that we are committed to outside from the application review committee, and how those applications work through the review processes with here at the Bureau. So there's some internal schedules, and that all can kind of have an effect on when that signed document is submitted to DLM.
All right. Well, what is it that is prioritized above these application reviews for the Bureau of Statistics and Plans?
So we have four main planning functions that we're working on now. This is through a comprehensive development plan. We have the federal consistency. So we have one planner dedicated to that. We have the non-point source pollution planner. And this non-point source pollution and the conservation district planner are the two members assigned to the ARC. But those two staffers, they have other duties that make up a full schedule. So one is working on trying to advance non-point source pollution, program working with DPW to engage in the MS4 projects. The other planner is starting to work on the forest system plan, as well as staffing various committees such as the Soil and Water Conservation District. And we work with these agencies to advance various projects and initiatives that work towards good coastal stewardship. So the commitment of time could range from anything from technical assistance to providing mapping services, to providing analytical work, to teaming on projects. And so they can be quite entrenched in terms of their commitment. But overall staffing, I broke up their time between one staff has 50% dedicated to ARC, so does the other staff, and then 50% of their time is focused on the other priorities of the office.
And do you believe that's adequate?
I think for now it's adequate. There are a list of things that the Bureau does need to start working on. But until such time that we are fully all in on those other initiatives, this staffing is holding, but at the expense again of those other things that are just piling up.
All right, so you suggested, several things today, thank you, and including the transmission to your agency of the GIS documents, but is there anything else that you can do in-house that might streamline your review of these applications? For example, the report that you write, it's been suggested that it doesn't need to be as detailed as they are sometime, and how do you feel about that?
So I feel I have to disagree with that statement. I think zoning is our only form of land use controls, and that there are both good and negative examples of development impacts, and depending on kind of how you view things, I feel that there are more examples of the later. And so you can see this in terms of areas that never flood before and have no geological reason to flood are now flooding. There are roads that used to be free flowing and now are congested. And there are views from highways that we once had that we don't have anymore. So these are all the impacts from development that really occur cumulatively. And they start with what's allowable in that zone. So when we're talking about protecting the natural charm of the island and protecting public welfare and reducing conflicts, we take that role very seriously. And the more that we can justify that through text, through good practices, through language, through ensuring that folks are following the code, we want to be sure that at this one moment of influence that we give it all our got, because once this moment passes, you can never turn back the hands of time unless you reinvest in some kind of redevelopment strategy, which is very expensive. So I asked the committee to think just about where we're headed in terms of the long-term progress for the island. Are the communities here more walkable? Are homes safer and becoming more affordable? Are ecosystems thriving? So this is what long-term planning kind of forces us to act upon. And so in terms of us discharging our due processes within our office, we feel that we try to get as much information in there that is useful so the GLUC can make the decision, hopefully that's in the best interest of the people and for our future.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Regis. I'd like to call now on the Guam Environmental Protection Agency. And as you can see, I'm calling on the agencies, these agencies first, because they've been noted to be some of the agencies requiring additional time for their review. So Mr. Leon Guerrero, Walter, Director.
Yes.
If you could explain any impediments or delays at your agency and what is causing those.
So, we often do have, and I'd like to thank Director Borja on trying to elaborate on all the different programs that have to review. So we turn, and just hearing the questions that you asked, Mr. Regis, we probably are about 25% late, and that might be a conservative figure to some. But if you look at the structure of our agency, most of the funding that we get is through federal grants, and those come with direct mandates that we have to meet. So something like the ARC and the Guam Land Use Commission reviews, that's something we have to try to mix our time into the reviews of those. So for instance, just the regular permit process for actual building, that we've taken as a priority over the ARC and the GLUC, only because those are the actual building designs that we have specific comments that can affect what the construction is. In short, in short, we are short-staffed. We used to have a planning division, which we're looking to try to implement, maybe not the division, but try to get some people in that would assist on this program, much to the same effect that ESP has planners to do. We are working on our accelerating our reviews on our permit process so that our team has more time to work on the ARC and the Guam Land Use Commission side. Internally, as far as, again, like Mr. Ray just had said, we're doing things electronically in Guam EPA to help us increase our review time or decrease our review time so that it gets processed faster.
Do you agree with the statement that your reviews are taking more than 60 days or more, how long?
Unfortunately, for some of the bigger projects, that is a very true statement, Madam Chair.
Do you think there's any way we could cut that to 45 days?
Again, what I was trying to state, and I apologize for interrupting, is that it would take us to increase our structure and increase our employment, and probably the best way would to hire some planners, if not one, if not two, which we would have to fit into our current budget. Again, and this is I don't think it's by any fault of anybody. We are funded. Majority of our funds are federal, which come with federal mandates that we have to meet. I know the local economy is not as thriving as it used to be, but we're doing really well. But we need to figure out, or I need to figure out the appropriate budget that will give the team the ample time to review it, and that would basically, as I know, it's increase our staffing pattern that would have someone that could be dedicated. Again, our engineers and our chief engineers, we have two chief engineers, or two PE engineers, and they have their own federal mandates that they have to meet again. And so we shuffle our time. Unfortunately, it's not like a 50-50% because we just can't afford to do that with this. We have to meet our federal mandates as well as these. So we've looked to the permit process as the main ability for us to provide comments and direction in the buildup.
All right. Do you believe that the public hearing should go on without the reports from the Guam EPA?
So we're active. Yeah. So we're very active in the ARC process. Where we come up a little short is actually in the submittal of the letters for the GLUC. Again, working with, we've had our division meetings. We're reassessing our structure as far as employment here. And one of the things that's come up is that we do need, maybe not still a planning division again, but we do need to get planners on board so that we can alleviate some of the review by our engineering division, our water division that has the engineers.
All right. Okay, thank you. And in the interest of time, I'd like to thank you, Director. I'd like to recognize that the other ARC members are here and present and available for questions. My only question to them would be, you know, whether 45 days is reasonable for you, but we've heard testimony already that your agencies are getting their reviews in generally on time. And I don't see the Department of Agriculture here, so with the exception of the Department of Agriculture and these other that we talked about. I'd also like to recognize the presence of the Director of Department of Public Works, who's also an ARC committee member. All right, and so I'm going to allow the rest of the panel to ask questions in this regard. We do have one more item slated on our agenda, and that is a specific discussion regarding workforce housing, which is a conditional use allowed under M1 zone, but currently developers for workforce housing have to submit applications and go through this same process for those applications. But before we get to that, I'm going to allow the senators to ask questions in regards to this GLUC process, the impediments that are delaying review or delaying completion of the review of the applications throughout the process. Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. Mr. Jeffrey Kidigwa is here from the Department of Agriculture. My apologies. Mr. Kidigwa, can I ask you to please answer the questions we've talked about earlier? Is there an impediment to review by your agency? It's been cited as one of the agencies that does not meet the deadline. Thank you.
Sure. At least with the Department of Agriculture, we have then made some changes with how the process within our department with the position statements and even with the reviews. So the issue that we have ongoing now is just the turnaround when after I do the reviews or draft the position statements, it's just, getting it to the administrators to review and sign off from it. That's where some of the delays are, only because they have so much in their plates to do as well. But when we do the process, the 60 days is reasonable. Sometimes depending on the project itself, it might need an extension, only because the review process may take much longer. What we're seeing these days now with the increase of development on the island is that a lot of species have shifted to areas or to habitats that have never been occupied. So it's just now a matter of going back into those sites and doing surveys in those areas for ourselves to know whether or not these protected species are present or if they may occur. But we're, for instance, like what's happening down at Camp Bloss up at Nictams with all that development for the marine relocation, that used to be a feeding as well as a roosting site for many of our native fruit bats. They've dispersed from that area. We're finding them in areas that we never expected to see. And some of these areas are, subjected for review, like for instance, the Okuru area. I've seen several reviews that was submitted for a position statement for some zone changes, and we're seeing now things that are seeing protected species in those areas that we have to be cautious with and really understand, are they just there as a refuge or are they there temporarily? Is things that we need to know. So it takes a lot more time than just a week or just to do these reviews, or even within 60 days to even come up with a comfortable statement that we can go ahead and process or move forward. So it's a day-to-day basis when it comes to the areas.
Has your agency considered any ways to streamline or expedite that?
We are. We do have a lot of our wildlife staff that are out there doing numerous surveys. We reached out to our agency partners with like the university and other nonprofits that are out there, even doing some studies and surveys with. And it really focused on a lot of the locally and federally listed species, and just getting a new map out, knowing or a better understanding of knowing where these protected species are found now, and that will help, at least minimize or reduce or improve the process when it comes to these reviews. But again, because of all the high demand of development on the island, we're going back into day one again in some of these areas that we are not aware of that had or that has species that are protected present.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Kidigwa. And I'm going to now open for questions, beginning with Senator Talina Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and good morning to everyone. It was mentioned several times on whether you guys can, whether ARC is able to shorten the timeline for processing certain applications for development. And so Mr. Regis, you said 45 days was doable. Is that correct? Okay. But really my question is are we, with asking the timeline to be shortened for application or for you to speed up productivity for applications to be reviewed, is it possible that you are overtasked and we need to find another way of, or another angle at looking at who the members of the ARC could be, or how we support the agencies better with the money that we receive from perhaps the development that we need to earmark to improve the processing system? I mean, it seems like Mr. Jeffrey from Department of Agriculture, they have to go out and they have to survey the species, the different wildlife species are being dispersed and they're not in the same locale. So they have to go to different areas and they have to find new areas and review them. Mr. Regis, you stated that you're unable to scan larger documents. Do you need to contract that out? I'm just thinking, what can we do to, other than request that you improve your process and expedite it, what do we need at the legislature to help you make that happen? And I see, because all of you guys are working in agencies and performing your own functions on top of ARC, is that correct?
Yes, we are, and that's a really deep question. And if I was to maybe just to proffer some brainstorming concepts at what the legislative kind of potential could be through a policy or through some kind of appropriations action, it may be worthwhile to kind of convene some kind of strategic session to get a sense of what would it take to automate and optimize the review process by using some kind of automated system.
Okay.
In the past, we've kind of jumped into technology where one agency wants to automate things, and then we say yes, we all want to do it, but it usually falls short when it comes to the actual specific integration into the processes. Every agency has their processes. Mm-hmm. So I think by having a focused and strategic approach that is phased in to the agency's operations as a specific, kind of accountable, fundable line item task could warrant some long-term a change to this, to convert to a more automated system.
Okay, and what type of programs or softwares would you feel that all the agencies should have access to be compatible with one another to perform this function that all of you guys do on top of your everyday jobs?
I certainly totally respect the agency's processes, so I won't proffer this response as speaking for them, but I will say that in other coastal states, what we have seen work is platforms that are built under the ArcGIS Pro platform, and these are the ESRI format. Okay,
thank you. And so, Mr. Arreola, it says that you're, Department of, are you the director here, or you are just the director for DPW? Because it says ARC director.
I am, yes, ma'am. I am the director at DPW, but we have a representative, Mary Rose Wilson, who's our representative on the ARC, and she just stepped out to pick up something from her office.
Yes, if I may, the chief planner, the administrator of the
ARC. Okay, where's our chief planner at? Oh, okay. Is that Mr. Borja? Is that you?
No, that's not me. The chief planner is Celine Cruz, but I wanted to respond to your question as to what.
Oh, there she is. Okay. Yes. Okay. Hi, Celine. Good morning.
Hi, good
morning. Is there a way that the ARC could come together and discuss something that they can propose to the legislature to assist with this process? And do you feel that automation is a step forward into helping the agencies process or ARC members process applications in a more efficient manner?
Certainly, I do think automation would help with distributing information, having the same information across the board to all of our members so that not only are they considering their mandates when they are preparing their position statements, but they're maybe some of the other comments they have are triggered by some other information requested by partner agencies, and then they can provide even more input to the development and the impacts to their mandates. But yeah, certainly automation is definitely something that we've been looking into. I think it's always just been an issue of funding. We have a lot of opportunities to create some programs that address, sharing this information across to our partner agencies. But the continuity of that, I mean, there's always like startup money, but finding money every year to support whatever platform that we are considering is always an issue.
Okay, thank you, Speaker. My concern is that we're talking about this automation thing and then nothing gets done, right? And that seems to be some of the challenges that we have within our government, where we need to come together and agree on how we're going to move forward with these processes, because COVID has greatly impacted on how we process things today, especially with our development moving forward. I know you guys need a lot of support. I mean, you're overtasked and it's a heavy load that you have to carry. So, Speaker, if I can request that we can continue this dialogue and really see what we need to provide for ARC members and the agencies within it to mainstream these kind of their processes through automation, if that's even possible, and maybe bring an Office of Technology.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Senator Nelson. Mr. Director Borja.
Madam Chair, to continue that line, take a look at this example. The Department of Land Management provides about maybe close to $80,000 in staff support to the business license permit section by stationing a senior planner up there to clear these business license applications and building permit applications. That's just the work that these senior planners do up there, stationed up there 8 to 5, is just a little bit above the level of clerical work. An application comes in, we need to verify the zoning, look on the computer, if it's zoned for what they're applying for, clear it, and they're gone. But in the meantime, land management has to station a senior planner up there 8 to 5, 5 days a week. That's a cost to the Department of Land Management for about $80,000 a year. Land management is self-sustaining. We do not get any money from the general fund. We only spend money that we get. The planning division presently has 4 planners. 2 of them are eligible for retirement with 30 years or more of service. I have 9 vacancies, but those are not funded. I need 2 more. During the study of this military buildup, work done with the military buildup office and like that indicated that land management will need 1.42 planners because of the military buildup. Why? For example, these temporary workers housing applications that are coming in, they're basically, at least at this point, for projects inside the fence. But land management, GovGuam, has to do the review of those issues also for the temporary workers housing. That's an expense of the local government because of the military buildup. So that's kind of like an example of where now, originally, like I said, it was estimated that we need 1.42 planners in addition to what we have now because of the military buildup. And again, just to say that, land management is self-sustaining. We don't spend any money from the general fund. So we're kind of limited in being able to recruit people. And again, of the 7 people in the planning division, 4 are actually eligible for retirement. 2 of the senior admin people and 2 of the senior planners.
Thank you, Director. Yeah, we are very well aware, and I thank you for bringing that up to the public's information as well, that the shortcomings of the staffing, and not the shortcomings, but there's just shortage of staff at Department of Land Management. But, we look to you to, ask for employees from, if we need to, other agencies for the additional support from Office of Technology. And as we consider these other technologies that we can bring in. However, just to bring us back on point here, that on balance that we've got multi-million-dollar applications that are development projects that are pending, and we need to find a way to balance these and to get the reviews done if possible. So we will take all your recommendations and consider them very seriously. I'd like to recognize Senator Chris Duenas, who's been waiting very patiently. Senator.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Speaker, and thank you to all of the members who are present this morning. It sounds as though the regulatory agencies are working as hard as they can to get this process moving. So I'd like to redirect my question now to the chairwoman of the GLUC, Dr. Enriquez. My understanding as the opening of this meeting took place was that you currently have 4 members with 1 additional member that is currently being processed to be heard by the legislature. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. During the time that I was the secretary of the Guam Land Use Commission as well, it was a 7-member board, 4 requiring quorum. Is that still correct?
It is now 5 with 3 required for a quorum.
5 with 3 required for a quorum. Okay, so that means that with your 4 now, that wouldn't require then a unanimous decision by the board in order to be able to approve an application, because it's 3 now.
That's correct.
Okay, great, because that was a problem in the past. So I have to direct this question simply because I know the speaker is going to bring up next the issue with regard to workforce housing and the obviously well publicized in the media issue with regard to that. Currently, there is a piece of legislation before the legislature requesting workforce housing to be approved by the legislature. I want to, yes.
We have scheduled that bill for a public hearing. That bill was received by our committee after we set this oversight hearing for GLUC. But it has been set for a public hearing, and we are going to announce that. It's been announced, I think, for, if I could just February 4th, yes. And so, we will talk.
I understand. The only reason why I'm asking the question, Madam Speaker, is I wanted, while we have everyone here in the same place, I don't want to discuss the legislation, but I want to get on record. Is there any regulatory agency present that believes the legislature should be approving any applications or moving through the process, sidestepping and bypassing the regulatory process? While we had everybody here, Madam Speaker, I wanted any particular agency to come forward to say that you would be receptive or accept the legislature doing this but through legislation.
Okay, I'm going to read the members' names down to, if we could, beginning with BSP, Bureau of Statistics and Plans.
Madam Speaker, I would object to the legislature taking such action.
Guam Power Authority.
Ma'am, we do not object.
Department of Agriculture.
We object.
The Guam EPA.
We object.
Department of Parks and Recreation,
We object.
GWA,
We would object, Madam Speaker.
all right. Senator Duenas, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I think this is very important information as we go into the public hearing on such an application. And I look forward to hearing representatives discuss their thoughts on workforce housing when you bring that matter up. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and members of this distinguished body.
Thank you very much, Senator Duenas. Senator Joanne Brown.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and certainly thank you to our participants, particularly from the respective government agencies that were here to provide us an overview of certainly issues related to the process of going through the Land Use Commission. Certainly, as a private citizen a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to work with the process with the Land Use Commission. I did want to note some of the frustrations because I still am currently a member of Save Southern Guam and a founding member. One of the things that I had some concern with was the public notice process. Our family had property within the 500-foot zone requirement for the notice, and we did receive it. But our village mayor had not been formally notified with regards to the proposed project. And I think that's something that if it's not a requirement, we probably should look at adding it as a requirement so that village mayors and the municipal planning councils that ultimately can have input through resolution with regards to these type of projects should also be aware so that there is more understanding in the community and anticipation of what's being proposed so that the community itself has some say so. I'm very much an advocate of having the people that live in their respective villages have as much input as possible. And I don't believe the current process allows for that. We are allowed a public hearing within the village, one public hearing. And the one we attended in Jonia at the time that probably had over 100 plus residents from both Chalampago and Jonia and some from Talafofo. There was not a single member of the Land Use Commission visibly there to have the community relay their concerns or hear back from them. We did have one member present, but he chose not to be in any official capacity for any questions or comments directly from the community. And I think that's an issue because the Land Use Commission itself removed itself directly from the process of hearing public input. And then when we had to attend the meetings there at Department of Land Management, we were very limited as a community, as individual members wanting to testify before the commission because we were already supposedly given the opportunity. So any changes that were proposed by the developer, the community was not given the opportunity to have input. In addition to that, and I don't know if the process has changed with regards to the GLUC meetings, even though I understand because of the pandemic, there's been limited activity as far as formal meetings. But the actual meeting itself is barely auditable for the audience that's there. While I understand that they're recording the meeting for record purposes, being able to have the members and of the community that are there that want to hear what's going on, if that issue has not been addressed, certainly that's something that needs to be done. I do know we're looking at addressing legislation to expand the public notice and engagement requirements, which I know will apply to the Guam Land Use Commission as well as every department and agency, but I think that's something that needs to be noted. And then also, Madam Speaker, I did want to comment on that question with regards to these notices being given out to residents that are within 500 feet of the respective project. I would have some concern because what happens in the event, and I'd like to ask our Director of Land Management, what happens in the event if we did have the developers send out these notices and they don't fulfill that obligation? What if they miss a resident or two? Because as you know, and it was raised, and we're well aware of the situation that I believe ended up in a legal case with residents from Perrisville that challenged that project because they never received any formal notice and they live well within the the area identified as 500 feet with regards to that project. So I wanted to ask the Director of Land Management if he could elaborate on that. What if they skip somebody? What does that mean to the project? Does it nullify the application at that point? Because as I mentioned, community engagement to me is critical. Residents that live in a home, that might be their single largest investment that they have and own. And I know many of our people want a quality of life. Of course, we want to look at development as enhancing our quality of life. So if the Director of Land Management could respond to that question.
Well, during the discussion of letting or allowing the developer, the consultant, to do the mass mailing, that was brought up that said, well, what if the developer already knows that that house, that person over there is against the project? Wouldn't it be in the best interest of the developer not to send a letter to that person? I say no, because if they don't provide notice to that person, whatever action the commission takes could be negated. Now, that happened in the condos up there near GMH, but it was shown that the party complaining had attended a previous meeting and that had known about the hearing, but did not actually get that certified mailing. So if you make it that if they miss somebody in that 500-foot radius, then any action taken by the commission could be negated. That would spur them along to make sure that they cover everybody. When I believe that when consultants do this, they should be mindful that the person that they really, really have to invite and notice are the ones against the project. Because if you notice anybody that's for the project, of course they're going to come there and say yes. But the most important people that you have to notice for those projects are actually the ones that may be against the project.
I also wanted to further ask with regards to, and I appreciate your point, but I also wanted to ask, do you think the 500-foot radius after all these years is adequate, considering some of these projects could be significant in magnitude that could affect residences in terms of, as you know, those of you from the utilities, could be infrastructure, could be water. It could be access to the highway and having cluttered highways because there's not enough space to accommodate a facility, for example, that can accommodate, let's say, 1,000 people that might be able to, if it's a high-rise building, be it a condo or a hotel or something of that nature. Do you think at this stage, after all these years, as these projects are getting and could be getting bigger, that the 500 radius should be expanded to a large area? Because 500 feet really is not that large when you think about it.
The 500 feet radius notice applies to the mailing of certified mail out there. There are other notices, to the residents of Guam, if you must say so. That is given. Of course, that's the newspaper notice, and sometimes in the TV when the project is either controversial or large. But why is it 500 feet and not 501? I don't know. I think that may be an arbitrary amount. But just imagine, though, that if you expand that 500-foot radius to, say, 1,000 feet radius, your mailing list for that certified mail, grows exponentially. So I don't really have an answer to that, whether it's adequate. 500 feet in Tamuning, a radius of 500 feet in Tamuning has X number of landowners. 500 feet, say in Maleso, might have less number of owners. So, you might want to say 500 feet in an urban setting, and maybe in a suburban setting, maybe 1,000 feet. So those are some of the issues that you have to think about when you declare 500 feet.
I appreciate that, Director Bohr. I have to tell you, you're probably one of the most experienced people in terms of historical knowledge of land on Guam, and I really commend you. I appreciate the fact that you are the director because of your background. Madam Chair, I do want to just have one more question for agriculture, because I think a very important point was brought up in concern with regards to protecting our endangered species on Guam. And I just wanted to ask further with regards to, are we doing an overlay with what potential options are available for our wildlife and endangered species, particularly as you mentioned, we could be doing this hodgepodge type of development and we chip away a little at a time, but then we don't have a bigger picture. I mean, are we just assuming, these species are going to find their own little niche somewhere as Guam continues to develop? Or are we seriously looking at how we can ensure that habitat areas are protected? I mean, I do know there are designated properties around the island that were created by law that are supposed to be protected. But as development happens, I don't know what efforts that the government of Guam itself are putting in to regulate these properties and protecting them from development. I was very familiar with the issue up there on the back road to Anderson with regards to the quarry and its desired expansion and their desire to just kind of work around the protected areas up there without really taking into consideration the impact to the natural habitat. So I don't know how aggressive we have been with that, but I just wanted to ask agriculture that question. If they could respond on what efforts they are looking to address the bigger picture.
Thank you, Senator Brown, for that question. And right now we are working on putting together. I mean, we do have recovery plans set aside for a lot of these protected species. We understand of our ownership of some of the conservation areas that we do have on the island. In fact, there are 5 that we do have, and we have plans for all 5. The challenges we have is that there are several, we have, people have high interest in encroaching those conservation areas. So that's one of the challenges that we are facing today. And it's just being able to really manage that areas and our Guam Forestry is doing a wonderful job with the coastal conservation area, with reestablishing native forests in that area. We have partners working on now. They've done a lot of great work out there identifying many of our endangered plant species, floral species that you can find in that area. And right now, as to speak, we are putting together a habitat conservation HCP program is what it is. And it really benefits and it comes hand in hand with development. It's like a mitigation bank for when there is development. So like, for instance, if a developer has the Guam native snails in that location, we can actually now go in there and pull out those snails and put them into these habitat conservation areas. That is being processed right now. It really will eliminate the delays when it comes to mitigation with these activities when we just we go out there and approve a development. Because right now currently what we have is asking the developer to downsize a lot of their projects because they have snails in that property, or they have the host plant for the Mariana 8-spot butterfly. So we apply buffer areas just so that colony, those species can remain in that area, and it becomes it becomes a burden for the developers because now they have to go back and either make changes, make adjustments to address that issue. In the past, when these species were, and many of these species are also now listed federally with the Endangered Species Act, and that was in 2015 in October. So, it now becomes more, I guess, in a way different, because we, even as local agencies, we would need to get, as a local agency, we need to get permission through Fish and Wildlife to be able to, to do those actions when we want to mitigate. It's not like back in the day, and an example is like the Elig Bridge project. There were snails in there. They had the Guam tree snail that was located in the area. It was not listed.
Sorry, we just lost his audio.
Yeah, Mr. Kidego, I think you ended up. Yeah, there you go.
So going back to the Elig Bridge project, we were able to, because it was not federally listed, we went ahead and took the authority to go ahead and relocate those snails out of the area, out of sight, so that the development can go ahead and proceed. And then we also, then brought it back in place. And that's what we have done in the past. But now, because a lot of our our species are becoming federally listed, the more that is coming, it's kind of a delay with us just getting with the working with Fish and Wildlife. But with the HCP and Fish and Wildlife being very supportive of it and helping us, guiding us to get that approved, it will eliminate that process and make things much easier. But with our agency, we are developing several master plans, I guess, with in sense of species, native species that we have. And it's not only native species that we're really concerned about. We're now even addressing more challenges with invasive species like feral pigs. We're getting calls every day that feral pigs are coming in, destroying people's backyards, their outside kitchens, their trash cans, and they're a menace. And then we got LFA, the little fire ant. There's rightly being spread around the island. In I think it was like less than 5 years, there was only like 9 known locations of the little fire ant. Today we have like over 20, 25 maybe it is, and the numbers are growing. Where these little fire ants are being found. So there's just a lot of things that we do need to look into, and we are trying to work very hard with even the different partners that we have here in the office to address that, so that we have we're ready to take action rather than sit and trying to figure out how to proceed.
Madam Chair, thank you, and thank you, Mr. Kittigwa, for your response. But I thank you for the extended time to ask questions. I know we could ask a lot of other questions, but maybe hopefully in the future we can schedule a visit with Department of Agriculture and actually get more familiar with these conservation areas and see what work is being done or what needs are there. With that, again, thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to ask questions of the panel.
Thank you, Senator. And I would like to recognize Senator Talina.
Sijus Masi, Madam Speaker, and thank you everyone who's here today to provide your information and testimony. And I thank you, Madam Speaker, for holding this public hearing, because I too have received complaints from constituents on the delay of the process that's going on when trying to get permits moving forward. And we all know that with businesses, time is money, and many of these companies or individuals who want to start a company or utilize property, the longer you wait, it really sets them back financially. And I think I addressed this actually at the beginning of the 35th Guam legislature, at the very beginning when I introduced legislation regarding the ARC and its responsibility. If I'm not mistaken, Public Law 33-209, that was stated, Director Borja, I believe you're still here. Oh, there you are. And two, I share the same sentiments as my colleague, Senator Brown, with regards to your position at Department of Land Management. As you know, my father worked there for many years, and he respects the work that you do. So I greatly appreciate you as well being there. Director Borja, when I introduced the legislation, it basically tried to piggyback onto Public Law 33-209, because the problem was there was no teeth to that. And today we're talking about timelines. We're talking about individuals trying to put their applications through and finding out what, how soon it could be put through, or the delay that's happening that, quite frankly, a lot of them don't know. And that will lead me to a next question coming up. But I'm looking at the law, and the law states that it's 30 days. You keep talking about a 60 days, but Public Law 33-209 talks about a 30 days. So can you, can you basically tell me, for the record, with the 30-day time period established by law for petition statements and reports to be provided to the ARC prior to the municipal public hearing, can you confirm for the record, when does the clock start for the 30-day time period?
I'll let the chief planner add that, but Senator Taitui, you are exactly right in that public law may not have teeth, because prior to that 30-day sentence, it says something like to the maximum extent possible. so that may be where the missing teeth that you may say on there. And then also so it does have that maybe a lack of teeth on it, on the 30 days. And I must say, as a disclosure, that I had a hand in drafting that bill when I was at Senator Tom Atta's office on that bill. And then the other part of that bill, which is something I believe that Senator Brown brought up, was that at the public hearing in Georgia, there was no GLUC members. That bill also has maybe some weak teeth about the attendance of the ARC members at those public hearings. And I myself, as well as the ARC members, are very cognizant of the bill that you introduced, which the governor subsequently vetoed, concerning trying to move, ARC position statement along by allowing the director of the Department of Land Management to fine other directors that don't turn it in. The only problem I had was that bill seems to be more on the punitive side, for that, and maybe that's a course that the legislature wants to take. But for government employees, we really kind of try to stay away from the punitive. Maybe that's what it needs. But I did not want to be in a position to be fining fellow directors, for something that their employee didn't do. But you are right that it may need some teeth because of that language, the any and all part of it, to the maximum extent possible, and I think it was the last sentence there about ARC members, may attend those things. But so I fully understand your concern and your point, Senator.
Thank you for that, Mr. Borja, Director Borja, because that was also a comment too on that particular legislation by Senator Tom Atta, that mayors must be informed as well. If you look at the beginning of that law that you helped draft as well. So my perspective was to provide the teeth that's needed, put what they say, put the fire to the feet, and get these individuals to provide a timeline that is sufficient. And I know everyone keeps talking about 40 days, because my plan now is to reintroduce the legislation with regards to the ARC, even though it was vetoed. And I did still maintain the 30 days on that legislation. So by reintroducing it, would you instead 30 days, put 45 days? Would that be sufficient with no extension? Because it does say in there, before the 10 days prior to the 30-day, that they must provide written statement requesting for an extension. So that almost makes it to 40 days, if you think about that, to allow that extension. So to reintroduce this legislation from 30 to 45 would probably be more supportive by Department of Land Management. As far as penalties, though, Director Borja, I still plan on putting the penalties, because there are penalties placed on other agencies and departments who don't fulfill their obligations and moving forward. So just the day is what I'm looking at.
Well, I would, we have a new commission, and I think as Administrator Regis said, I would ask for a 60-day period from now to see how the ARC replies to all this interest of the legislature to do. I believe there are new people on the ARC from the various departments. I know, for example, that the Department of Agriculture is making renewed efforts to maintain their mandate, as well as reply to these position statements within the allotted time. Bureau of Statistics and Plans, have renewed energy, I believe, to make sure that these position statement comes in. But having said that, I'm still concerned about EPA because EPA's review is such a broad review of the 3 programs they have, and it's such a technical review, being involved in the environment issue there. That one, you know, for EPA, the time that it takes for them to review a project, I think it's basically worthwhile, you know, for that time. And with Commander Bearden on that, and hopefully EPA gets at least a planner to dedicate to these position statements, they could hopefully shorten the time. But I would ask that keep the bill on the floor, but I would like to ask for at least a 90-day trial period to see how this new ARC responds to it. I understand time for private businesses as well as the department, you know, is money. But once we put things in statute, you know, the saying, it takes an act of Congress to change that. So that would be my only comment on the Senator Taitagui.
Okay, Sijus Masi, Mr. Borja, and I do realize that you're following the Executive Order 96-26 on 60-day calendar, but you know that law always trumps any kind of executive order. So actually, the right time is not 60 days. It's actually 30 days, if I'm not mistaken, with the extension, okay? Because everyone keeps saying 60, but the law says 30. The other, also, Mr. Borja, you mentioned the dates and times, and that was some of my questions. I thank the speaker for all the questions she asked. Quite a bit of them were answered. However, when you were providing the list of meetings that were held earlier and post, I guess even post-COVID and prior COVID, can you please send that listing dates? Because you read it off by date, you know, on what was canceled and stuff, because that was one of the questions. If you could just post that either on this chat, if you were reading it from something you wrote, I appreciate it. If not, then just send it to the speaker's office, and I ask speaker if you can forward that to the senators as well. And I don't want to keep too much more. I just want to ask, has there been any developers canceled their projects due to COVID, or because action has yet to be taken by the Guam Land Use Commission? I guess that could go to the Chief Planner, Ms. Cruz.
Thank you, Senator. To answer your question, no applications have been withdrawn due to COVID.
Okay, and just one more. Prior to COVID, in the event, well, okay, how many applications has been submitted after March 16, 2020?
If you give me just a moment, I can pull that information up.
After 2020, and if you could add to that, how many applications still pending prior to COVID? And that's my last time, speaker.
Just a moment, I'm pulling it up right now.
No problem, thank you.
Mr. Borja, do you have that information available?
You know, I'll leave it to the Chief Planner. I believe it's 48. Now, 48 pending. After March 20, I'm not sure how many were submitted after the beginning of the COVID. And again, we go by fiscal years, but the planner has that information.
Okay.
Since March of 2020 to date, we've received 25 new applications.
Prior though, the question was how many pending prior to COVID, prior to March 16, 2020, how many applications were pending? Right now you have 25 new from March 2020 until today. There are 25 new ones, but prior to that, to COVID, how many are still pending?
That would be roughly 40 applications.
40 applications.
Yes.
Okay, and Mrs. Cruz, that 40 that is prior will have priority over the 25 new ones that were submitted, correct?
Yes, certainly. And just to add to that, of the 40, 8 are ready to have public hearings. We just need to set up the venues for those particular applications. We have another 10 that have been thoroughly researched, but we are just waiting for all of the position statements, and then another 10 applications that are still pending research.
That's 28 only.
So there are some others that have not gone through the application review committee. So what triggers the start of research is that initial review by the application review committee. And
Well, that's 28, and there was 40 that are pending.
It's just under 40. It was an estimate on my part. Sorry, I could get that exact information to you.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. I won't hold up any more time. Madam Speaker, I appreciate those numbers coming in just to tell us the pending and where they are today. And hopefully that the department is also notifying these companies or these individuals submitting their application, what's holding it up, where they are, where in this whole process that they're waiting for. Thank you, Madam Chair, our Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. Ms. Cruz, is there a reason that they have not gone through the initial review of the ARC?
Some of it is staffing issue.
Where?
Here in the land planning division. So we do have 4 planners available, including myself. And at the beginning of 2019, we were asked to staff or have staff physically located at the DPW permit center to process building permit applications, business license applications, and other applications that go through the government. And so that with that, we had to shift our manpower to having 2 planners spend a little bit more than half the day each up there. And that left myself and another senior planner back here at the main office to process any new applications that we received. So that review mainly was put on our more senior planner, Mr. Frank Titano, and he does a very thorough review. He identifies, during this initial review of the application, any additional information that might support the application or any other information that is required by that process. So, we have had a backlog in the review, in the initial review for the more complex applications. And a lot of these applications that came in are complex. There are those workforce housing applications. There are zone changes or subdivisions of, a considerable size. So we take the time to ensure that the applications as submitted initially are complete, and then we get all the information so that when it moves through the process, there aren't additional questions by the application review committee or even the Guam Land Use Commission.
All right. Do you agree with the director's earlier statement that these are processed by the Department of Land Management within 10 days?
For the simple applications, we can process those within the 10 days. For the more complex applications, we do go beyond the 10 days, just giving our current staffing levels.
To assist with that staffing issue, Madam Chair, Speaker, and Senator Taitagui, Land Management has recently recruited a planner who will be starting, I believe, February 1st. So we will have one additional planner to help us with our workload.
All right, okay. I'd like to now recognize our minority leader, Senator James Moreland. Thank you, Senator, for being patient.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you to the folks here today. Question for the Director of Land Management, please. Okay, so I understand from our Chief Planner that we have roughly 40 applications pending. Do we have a money amount in these total projects, revenue to generate? What is the cost of these projects? Of the approximately 40, how much money are we having on the table pending?
You know, Senator, we haven't had we don't actually categorize the totals. What we can do is when a project costs more than $3 million, it's referred to the hybrid commission. And from there, we can total. From one consultant, I believe he may have $500 million in projects, about $500 million from one consultant. That's one of the most prolific consultants out there processing these applications. And his estimate is that it might be, from the other consultants, his estimate was about $1.5 billion worth of development.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Appreciate that. I'm understanding from the calls I'm getting also, it's in the billions actually, and some of those higher ones that could actually be it. So understand you're giving us some good ideas, some good things that we can look at for public laws to make adjustments to, and the importance from every ARC of why their reports are necessary. So I appreciate that input. Also on the municipal planning hearings, you mentioned, Director, that Zoom wasn't an option, and I'd just like to ask if you can kindly reconsider that. As the legislature, we adjusted to that Zoom. We passed public laws. We have public hearings, and we make some big decisions through those public hearings and passing our laws. But hopefully these, this pandemic will go through. But I think that's going to take a while, and we just have to be prepared for possibly the next pandemic as well. But through this technology of using these different forms of media, like what we're doing right now as well, we're able to hold this conference. And I think it will be really important if we can do that. I understand that, maybe not a lot of constituents may have access to electronic media but we can have multiples, right? And we've had public hearings on certain bills that we've had multiple Zoom meetings as well. And this is where things are going to. So I really hope you can reconsider having these public hearings on Zoom with the Municipal Planning Council. And possibly that can also save up some of the ARC committee times too, and they can be able to come and report electronically as well. So, and I think when we do this and it's recorded, and then that can be shared to other people that weren't able to make it, because they can go back onto a YouTube broadcast too, as one of the senators has mentioned, that sometimes getting the notice out is difficult. But however, if you have these public hearings recorded, then they can come up and listen to it at their own convenient time, and maybe another public hearing can be arranged because more people are now interested because they heard something about it. So I'm just highly encouraging you to kindly reconsider that as well, because we know as the quicker we can get these projects correctly approved and having HARC address their issues, the quicker we can gain BBT, business privilege tax, the quicker we can get people employed, and eventually all this money goes into the general fund. And then the quicker we can address staffing issues for each of your departments as well, for the support of our community. But I thank you, Director, for that. I do have a question for the Chief Planner as well regarding the notices. You mentioned the print media and another, I'm not sure, on your website, is this also put out as well? And how is this shared electronically too for the notice of public hearings?
So for the municipal public hearings, we do not post those on our website, but the Guam Land Use Commission meetings, which are public meetings, we do post that on our website.
Okay. Would it be helpful that it's also posted on your website, or do you feel it's not something necessary? And I probably get your notices too, but now I'm going to even take a more important look at it too, because if I get this on soft copy, there are so many neighborhood groups on these different chat groups that will most likely will be interested in, as the senator has also mentioned, it's just getting the word out, and then we can probably increase attendance in these hearings electronically, hopefully, but also by sharing this message much more quicker with social media. And so I'm hoping that can be done. Is that a possibility?
It is a possibility, Senator. Yes.
Okay.
Senator?
You let me know. Yes, Mr. Director. Yes, sir.
Senator, thank you very much for those comments. You know, when we were considering having a meeting, GLUC as well as ARC and some of the other groups here at Land Management, when we saw that the legislature was able to hold Zoom meetings, these public hearings to these video conferences, and the information that they get, they use to develop laws, I said, let's go. Because if the legislature can use that level standard of a notice to develop laws, then I think that the Land Use Commission can hold that. The Land Use Commission, so far, all of the meetings have been by video conferencing. And the thing that you might have to look through the statute is, like I said, when you have a public hearing, there's two facets to it. The public hearing itself, the facility, but also the notice process. And in the law, I believe for notices of public hearing, it is specified how notice is to be given. And you might change the law. You know, the technology is developing faster than the law on this. And one of the reasons why we held back on having video conferencing, video meetings, is that does that allow everybody that wants to partake in the public hearing to do so, you know, if they're lacking the IT stuff, the computer and the access to the meeting electronically, you know. But certainly I believe staff prefers that it be video conferencing rather than a face-to-face. Setting up a meeting with the mayor's office is can be quite daunting in scheduling matters. It's not really a matter of money. They're always willing to provide us the space, but of course, according to their schedule. And thank you for those comments. We do intend to utilize video conferencing as much as possible, but within the limits of the existing law concerning the notice process.
Okay. Mr. Director, I guess you're referring to 33209?
I'm referring actually to public notice requirements, like for conditional use permits, where they have to be by certified mail and things like that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And my final question, Madam Chair, is for the Land Use Commission Chair. With our current conditions, and I'm just hoping the attendance is still okay, but of course we know with COVID and the responsibilities of the land use commissioners there, I'm wondering if everybody still wants to remain on that commission, or do you need more volunteers? Do you need any replacements because of the COVID situation, or are you fine with the number of members that you have in attendance regularly?
Mr. Senator, we've had 100% attendance thus far since early November, and we are awaiting our fifth commissioner to onboard. The fact that 3 makes a quorum of 5 gives me confidence that every meeting will be held. I don't anticipate being absent at any meetings unless there's an emergency, and I find that our commissioners are very passionate about their role and their responsibility on this commission.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. It's good to know. Thank you so much. Thank you to the panel. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator Moylan. Before I move on to the next agenda item, which is specifically regarding temporary workforce housing, I would just like to give an opportunity for GWA, GPA, and DPW if you have any additional comments that you'd like to add to this discussion. So, Mr. Berdalio.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We just wanted to state that our performance so far, since we've been tracking it since 2015, on average, we are meeting the 60-day time frame. We think if it changes to 45, that's certainly reasonable for even the larger projects, but the 30-day time frame for some of the more complex projects will be difficult for us to meet. And it's simply because of the analysis that needs to be done and some of the verification in the field that might also need to be done in order to provide the proper review and developing the position statements. We do have some suggestions with regard to enforcement of conditions and regulations that were referenced in your letter. We can provide that, given the time that's already passed, we can provide that in writing to the committee. I have nothing further to add, but I would ask if there are any specific comments from Maureen McDonald or Prudential, again, from our planning department, that they'd be allowed to comment as well.
Yes, please.
Okay, good afternoon, Madam Speaker and senators and everyone on the committee and on the hearing. Just want to reiterate some of the other ARC members' comments about resources and how many of the ARC members are also working with building permit reviews and how that really is the bulk of a lot of our efforts when we are in the workplace. So in 2019, there was a governor's task force to improve efficiency with the permitting procedures. And I believe that task force has some recommendations, but in looking at what could improve ARC review timeframes and looking at everything holistically, it's looking at what the members deal with on a day-to-day basis and how to improve and streamline all of the work that we do so that we can improve in all areas, all aspects of our work. Because ultimately, an applicant with a GLUC application will hopefully get to the building permit stage. So we want to streamline that whole process, not just at the beginning with the ARC, but through the building permit stage and the inspections and the occupancy permit. We do want to improve that whole process in its entirety.
Thank you. The other representative from GWA, did you want to add?
No comment.
All right, thank you. GPA?
For the speaker, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Yeah, we look at internal processes. Earlier we talked about GIS. That's one of our main tools that we used to help look at the site and determine if we can support this facility. We also we have asked help from the engineers to go out and do site inspections. But I do want to say that DLM has been very, very supportive. One of the things that we've asked for early on, and they included in their DLM Form 01, is to ask for the power demand. And a lot of times, for the most part, big developers, they provide that. An electrical engineer will provide that document in there. We've also asked them to put in their form preliminary title report, which helps us determine who the owner is for that particular property. That helps out and speeds up a lot of the processes. In addition to that, we also have a service where developers can come and meet with engineers, right? And they can look at their projects early and help with looking at what their demand would be and try to plan way ahead. So that way we have the necessary electrical equipment to support that facility. Some of that's written in our service rules or even the application process. And not only do we look at, in this process through the ARC, we look at whether or not we can support that facility or that development, but also the maintenance piece, right? So a lot of the data from other agencies is quite important. And we appreciate land management sharing some of their GIS data, Bureau Stats and Plans, Guam Waterworks. We know that it's a tool to help us, but we also trust and verify out in the field. That's all I have to add, ma'am.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Guzman. No, Gumentauta, Mr. Gumentauta. Yes. So for the director, DPW, Mr. Ariola. Please unmute. All right, looks like. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair. My name is Mary Rose Wilson.
Okay, can you speak up a little louder? Yeah, or get closer. Yes.
Okay. My name is Mary Rose Wilson. I represent the ARC in the department. ARC. Okay. My director is kind of have an emergency meeting right now. So if there's any questions that we need to ask, then I can maybe answer some. If not, I will inform him. So go ahead.
All right. No questions right at this time. Just wanted to know if you had any additional input right now. So we will send any questions that we have to the director.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
All right.
much.
And finally, so the Department of Parks and Rec. Mr. Alcantara, are you here? All right. I know that the State Historic Preservation Officer is off island right now, or was not available today. Okay. All right. So we're going to move on to the final segment of our agenda. And Mr. Berdalio, I did put it on the agenda. It's very important to me that we hear whether the conditions that are being set by the GLUC are able to be enforced by the GLUC, by DPW, or by the agencies that have suggested those conditions. And so I very much look forward to your input on that. And thank you for considering the time constraints we have right now. I will forego that discussion right now. All right, so as we said earlier, this part of the agenda is to discuss specifically temporary workforce housing. So pursuant to the statute, applications for the development of temporary workforce housing shall come before the GLUC as a conditional use subject to the review process of the agency review committees and shall be subject to specific conditions of approval as established by GLUC. And so we went through the whole process, and I just want to note that there are some outstanding applications for temporary workforce housing that seem to be taking a while, and that we did receive written testimony from, there are many in the community that are interested, so we've received comments in different media, but we did receive written testimony from Mr. Daniel Swavely and from Black Construction, from Phil Sun Kim, and from NAN Inc. And these testimonies have been provided to all senators, and I want to thank these companies and entities and persons for submitting such testimony with some very concrete suggestions moving forward for the Department of Land Management especially, and for processing these temporary applications, these workforce applications. Right now, I'd like to focus on just for the Guam Land Use Commission. Can you please provide a status on applications pending for workforce housing in particular? How many are pending, and what are the reasons for the delays?
Madam Chair, if I could allow the Chief Planner to present that information. She does have the list, as I do, of the 8 pending applications, pending public hearings. And in it, I believe, are 3 or 4 workers' housing. And she'll be able to explain why there is a delay on that.
All right, but could you please clarify then that there are no applications in front of the Guam Land Use Commission at this time, or set to be presented to them at the next meeting, in fact? Is that correct?
Not temporary workers' housing, but there are 2 applications, I believe, on the agenda for the next meeting. But I don't believe that those are temporary workers' housing applications.
Thank you, Director. Ms.
Celine? Unmute. There you go.
Sorry. There are 3 applications in the PAI process. That's the preliminary application interview process. There is 1 that is pending with the ARC. That means it's been accepted and we're just waiting to have our next ARC meeting. And then there are 2 applications that are pending public hearings.
So you've got 6 total?
Yes.
Okay, and all right. Okay, can you give us a time frame, for example, of the public hearings? How soon will those be held?
So for in particular, we have decided to begin the public hearing for a zone change, which has a related zone variance for height, and that's for a construction company. That would be our first, but we're just in the process of calling all of the municipal, the mayor's offices to coordinate those meetings, since we do have the research done for a few of those applications.
All right.
For the, Madam Chair, for the workers' housing application in Tamuning, actually in Harmon, that will probably be set in about 3 to 4 weeks. And these hearings are have to be given 25 days certified mail notice. So it's at least going to be 25 days. And what we do is we set a date with the mayor's office, and then we work backwards to get that mailing list out or mailings out for the 25-day notice, certified mail notice.
All right, thank you. And you described earlier that review of workforce housing applications are complex and they might take a little longer. Could you just explain why? What makes them complex, and how much longer do they take normally for the Department of Land Management's review of these applications?
So generally, it would take about a month to review those types of applications. Again, it would be our senior planner doing that type of review. As conditional uses are required to identify placement of buildings, addressing egress, ingress, and there are specific requirements for conditional uses, but then further for workforce housing, there are other requirements that must be in place as part of the conditional use application. And that includes medical facilities within the premises, food preparation areas, recreational areas, and we just need to ensure that the plan as presented by the applicant is complete, and that they've included all of those requirements of a conditional use application.
There's a statute that lists out some additional requirements for temporary workforce housing under the zoning law. Is there anything on DLM's checklist in addition to those items that are required by statute?
Not that I can think of at this moment.
All right, and so back to the GLUC. When the GLUC considers these types of applications, sometimes the GLUC sets conditions on these, and I want to know, does the GLUC ever consider, after the approval is given, whether the housing continues to be consistent with the requirements in the law?
As a matter of practice, there is one general condition that staff do recommend, and that is those an annual inspection, and also a time limitation for the conditional use for renewal.
All right, and I see the DPW representative nodding in agreement. So that, are these inspections done by DPW?
I believe they're done by all the various agencies, and for here at Land Management, it would be the responsibility of the case planner when we do receive their annual report to verify the information on that report.
All right. And so I've also asked the Department of Public Health's Division of Environmental Health representative to be here. Thank you for being here. And because it doesn't look like there is a role for the Department of Public Health in the application review process. However, there is a statute that requires that standards for workforce housing are enforced by the Department of Public Health. And I just wanted to ask you if I understand this correctly, or how do you understand your role in the workforce housing requirements?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Speaker. Okay, the role of Department of Public Health is to issue the sanitary permit and dormitory permit for all these temporary workforce housing facility. Before they bring in their H2 workers, they need to clear from all the other agency, and one of them is Department of Public Health. So we gave them conditional approval when they bring in their temporary alien workers. They have to turn in the applications 30 days prior to the arrival of the H2 workers, so that there's already a ready facility for them to occupy or move in as soon as they arrive on the island.
All right, and so do you review the facilities?
Yes, Madam Chair, we review also the construction plan. If this is a new construction of a temporary workforce housing facility, Public Health is involved in the plan review or in the building permit process. Then we are also involved in the occupancy permit process. Then after getting the occupancy permit, then that's the time that we can issue the sanitary permit and the workers' dormitory permit. And we inspect temporary workforce housing facility regularly every 3 months for the first year, as long as they meet the letter grade A for 4 consecutive inspections. Then they will move on to the secondary phase, which is semi-annual inspection. And if they pass, they get a letter grade A for the 2 consecutive inspection. Then they will move on to the annual or only once a year inspection. We have a dedicated staff that is funded by the fees that's coming from the importation of H2 workers. So we've been on top of that, and we've been regularly inspecting all the temporary workforce housing.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to put that on the record and so that everyone has an idea that, yeah, so there are other agencies that are also reviewing this type of development or these workforce housings, but they're not involved in the application review process for the conditional use. They're involved in other phases, I guess. And so I just wanted to clarify that. And but that you feel that you are sufficiently able to enforce the standards at this point in the process?
Yes, Madam Chair.
All right, I just want to state for the record, so this is Mary Lou Scruggs, Environmental Public Health Officer Administrator. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Scruggs. All right. Senators, if you have any brief questions, I will entertain those right now. Otherwise, I would like to conclude this hearing because of the time. Are there any questions? Yes, Senator Moylan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. A question for the director. So again, you're going back to, because of the current law, this is something I should be looking at, because it's for the temporary housing to get approved. It's going to take 3 to 4 weeks for this public hearing, 25 days for the certified mail notice. And that's adding to the delay of getting these processes approved, right? You're stressing to me, in other words, the importance of this is where we're at, this is what we got to deal with. But if we can adjust that, it will be more helpful for you. Is that correct?
Well, it would be, more helpful for the consultant to move his application along, but public notice is always a very high tenet in processing these things, and that's one of the most important facets of processing this application is public notice.
Okay, I appreciate it. And then when we're discussing the temporary workforce housing, so right now we have 1,500 rooms available, right? We have another, we got 2,500 coming on in the year of 2021. They're coming. we need 1,000 more rooms. This is for the purpose of military buildup. It's also for private buildup and government projects too. And the law is requiring us that they're supposed to be put in these temporary workforce housing in M1 light industrial areas. But if they can't, you know, I guess they're just going to be, they're still coming. and so we got a situation that we don't want to look at alternatives where they're moving into our neighborhoods. They're renting homes, they're renting apartment buildings next to our friends and families as well. Not that there's nothing wrong, but all of a sudden, all of our available residents for rents may be occupied with 1,000 more people coming, and with the limited amount of space that we're supposed to have them separated from. So it could limit the housing for everybody else, and it could also drive up costs. So I'm hoping that somehow we can do something on a fast track version, and maybe if these things are built and then public health comes in and then certifies it. If it's an M1 zone, industrial zone, then the progress needs to continue and then still get inspected. And if they don't do it right, then close them down. I'm just throwing out some suggestions there because we can't stop them from arriving at our ports, right? And they're going to come, they're going to build. And if they're already locked into a contract at an apartment building or somebody's house, that could be my neighbor, they're locked into that for a year. Maybe they rent it for 2 years for a better rate also. So something for further discussions, and I appreciate all the information that we're gathering on that. So thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Again,
Senator Moylan, if I could just provide the information, and Chief Planner, please correct me if I'm wrong on this. I believe there's about 22,000 workers' housing units approved, but only about maybe 2,200 built. Remember, I believe Cortec had that big spread out there in Okudu. So the number of applications for workers' housing, the number of units, workers' housing rooms, if I might say, approved through the GLUC, I believe is at 22,000. So that's approved. But how many have been built is about 22, maybe 2,200. The last figure that I had was about 2,200, because the Department of Labor has to know this when they're bringing in, these applicants are bringing in, these contractors are bringing in. I believe they have to certify that there is housing available before they bring them in. So there's 22,000 units that were approved, and I believe less than 3,000, to be a safe figure, have been built. These new applications that are coming in are from contractors that have these projects waiting for these workers to come in. So number of units approved to be built, 22,000, actually built about 3,000, but these applications that are pending before the commission or that are being submitted, or these commissions, are from specific contractors that probably already have their projects online and they need these workers. And in order to get these workers in, they need the housing, the certified housing. So that's just some information for you, Senator.
Thank you very much, Director. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Director Borja, I just have one question. When you said 3,000 units, are these 3,000 rooms or 3,000 buildings?
No, 3,000 rooms, and that's a liberal figure. The last time that I was in a meeting that discussed the availability of temporary housing workers, I believe the number given to me was 2,200, and that was about maybe a year ago. So no, not 22,000 buildings, 22 housing units. I would venture to say 22,000 rooms.
thank you, Director. Thank you, Senator. Again, I want to just make sure, so there's no confusion, that there is another public hearing scheduled from February 4th at 2 p.m. on Bill 14-36, which seeks to expedite the GLUC process for temporary workforce housing permitting during a pandemic, and by foregoing the public hearing and other parts of the process. So, Senator Duenas, did you want to ask one question?
Yeah, just real quick, Madam Chair. So in the polling of the membership that's here, I didn't get an answer, or you didn't ask the Director of Land Management, and I'd like to ask him directly. Do you approve of bypassing any regulatory processes for workforce housing approval?
You know, the bill addresses a pandemic situation, and approval of those workers' housing is limited like to 24 months, I think, to come back. I'd have to see actually what develops on the floor. As you well know, sometimes a bill coming in is not the same version coming out. And again, I spoke earlier about the importance of public notice, because throughout the legislation or the statute for the Guam Land Use Commission, there's specific language that the Guam Land Use Commission shall not approve any application that has not gone through public hearing. So if you are going to introduce or enact something like that, you're going to have to backtrack to some of the other statutes in the zoning law that may be affected by doing that. And again, I recognize that it's a pandemic situation. It's limited. The property is already end zone, but the chief planner, has indicated to me that in some of these applications, there are certain conditions that were put on these workers' housing locations, and a lot of those came in from public notice, public input.
No, Director Borja, just real quickly, a follow-up on that great information you gave us. That is really kind of even astounding to me. So you say that there's capacity for up to 22,000 approved already by the GLUC, yet we have applications pending.
That's correct. And again, the 22,000 are specific. It's not, it's not all available in there. So if an application got approved for a workers' housing, for example, 2,000 workers' housing units, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's been built, and that doesn't necessarily mean that those 2,000 units are available.
So we look forward to your testimony on the bill. Thank you, Director.
Thank you. Thank you, Senators. Thank you. So just to conclude, there's been a delay in processing of applications in part due to the pandemic and the inability to hold municipal public hearings, which is one step in the GLUC process. However, there have also been delays in the application review committee step of the process, which varies from agency to agency, and we've heard some of the background and the reasons for this today. Statutes say position statements must be submitted within 30 days of the application. However, it seems certain agencies are not able to meet that mark, and there are some staffing shortages and delays when the review requires technical review or more complex review. So we currently have about 40 to 50 applications pending, dating from last year and moving through the process. And of course, the chief planner will confirm the most accurate numbers for us as we go forward. And we know that these projects represent millions, maybe billions of dollars in investment. And so we will take all the suggestions today, continue to look at ways to address the delays or impediments. And of course, I want to thank all of you members of the Guam Land Use Commission, especially Chairperson Enriquez, Member Chan, Mr. Chan, and Ms. Flores, for your time here today and for your attention to these matters, and having the commission keep current at this time with pending applications and review of those applications. We know that all of you from the application review committees have been adapting, to the COVID environment and the working conditions, and still trying to keep up with the deadlines for these projects, for these reviews. And I want to thank you for all your diligent work in that regard, and for the recommendations that you brought up today. Of course, I want to thank the Department of Public Health and Social Services for also being here, and all of you have really committed very valuable time to this. I know it's very important to you, and I think that's a good thing. It shows that the government agencies are very much dedicated to getting these things done. We are having some issues, and that private sector, public sector, we're going to have to work very hard together to resolve these. I thank the senators for their time, of course, and for their excellent questions and follow-up, which I know will happen relative to these issues. So there appears to be some progress. We will find more ways to assist the Commission and the agencies tied into this process to make it a more timely and precise process that nurtures development and investment while not compromising the safety of the community and our resources. So again, I thank you for your work, and please do not hesitate to contact this committee with any additional recommendations that can be done at the legislative level to achieve this goal. Thank you again to Chief Planner, and congratulations on your new position, and to the Director of Land Management. Thank you again for the details that you've provided prior to the hearing and to help us facilitate this hearing. So, si Diyos mahasi to everyone. It's now 11:55 a.m. This hearing is hereby adjourned.
Diyos mahasi.